Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sportlight podcast. On this week's Sportlight podcast, we're going to talk about drug addiction and sports. This last week on Saturday, we had a banquet where Max Hall, former BYU quarterback and NFL quarterback, gave a speech. We would love you to hear that speech, to listen to that speech with your children and those that you love, and to talk about this really, really critical topic of drug addiction.
Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
Well, we're coming off an incredible week. We had 2 summits this week where we got to gather hundreds of athletes from around the state and from neighboring states, and they were able to listen to Jaron Hall, BYU quarterback, Allie Bills, former collegiate basketball player and coach, and Eli Ballstead, who is a current member of the Utah Ute basketball team, and other collegiate athletes. They got together with a bunch of high school athletes from all around the state, and we did some get to know you activities. They got to meet each other, and it was one of the most joyful events that we've been part of. It was just awesome. And then on Saturday, we got together with all of our donors and school administrators and coaches and those who really helped to support this program, and we had a nice banquet. And at that banquet, Max Hall took some time and he gave a speech. He told his story in great detail about how he went from being a BYU quarterback, someone who had never imagined himself as a drug addict, to ending up in the back of a police car. And the advice and counsel that he shares and what he learned from his story and what he and his wife learned from that is just so incredible. If there's one episode that we would have you sit down and listen to with your children, it would be this one, because someone who falls into drug addiction, it is so hard for them to come out of it. And some of our kids, in a side conversation after he gave the speech, Max talked about how kids these days, they're falling into these addictions and not realizing what they're doing. He talked about the dangers of fentanyl and how there's kids that are just dying across the country because these drugs are being made by people who don't really care about others' lives. And if one little bit of that very dangerous drug and other drugs get into the drugs they're taking, it's killing too many kids. And so this would be an episode that we would challenge you to sit down, listen to it with your kids, and then have a discussion with them. Coaches, listen to this with your players and talk to them about the dangers of drug abuse and the dangers of alcohol abuse and any addiction. It's costing too many lives. So with that, here's Max Hall at our banquet last Saturday.
So as I mentioned before, Max and his biceps are going to come up here in a second and talk to everybody. I got to know Max, actually the first time Max and I met was on a golf course when he was playing at BYU. And we went out and golfed, and then he helped me at a little football camp years ago. Did you know that? When you were at BYU, yeah. Over at Velocity Sports Performance there at the Point of the Mountain. So he was just in his young 20s. And then it was several years ago he came out and helped us at a football camp. And he was there with Ty Detmer and Mark Brunell and the rest of our crew, and I had gotten to know him a little bit from Brandon Doman, who was his coach at BYU, and Brandon just loved Max and had all these cool stories about Max. And so as I got to know Max a little bit, it had followed what had happened to him, and he'll talk about that. But he had sort of the opposite, or the negative effects of the Sportlight. And I've used his example actually before. Max knows this. If you Google Max Hall on the internet, there's a mugshot of Max that pops up.
Yeah, everybody skip page 1.
Yeah, go to the second page. Then there's a bunch of great stuff. As I mentioned earlier, Max, when he spoke and told his story to all these athletes, Max and I think we bonded from that experience because I don't know, very few times in my life have I had a guy's back like I had Max's during that time. I had a dad write me a letter shortly before the camp, and he said, I can't believe you're going to have a drug addict come and speak to those teenagers. My son, I want my money back. I'm not bringing my son to your camp. And I replied to him and I said, I tried to be as kind as I could to him, but I said, that's the whole reason we're having Max come and talk, is because he's been through something that I hope you don't think your son is immune to, that every one of us knows somebody who has struggled with addiction. And he couldn't see past that. And I said, what a shame that this dad really thinks that our program was just about how to throw a spiral. And the kids who came to that event, it was a Friday night, our camp was on Saturday, we did this event indoors, and he spoke, Max spoke. And Max was pretty emotional in it, and many where the kids were, and we had some parents that stuck around to hear him speak. And before we even started the camp on Saturday, I had emails from parents saying, my son could miss the Saturday camp, which was a 6-hour camp. We've got every penny of what we came for this camp for, from just listening to that story. And it reminded me that why in the world do we spend so much time and money and emotional stress and lack of sleep and all the things we go through worrying about our kids' ability to hit a ball or to put it in a hoop or to run fast, when we have them at this impressionable age where we can use sports as a way to teach them how to be better wives and husbands and business owners and leaders someday. And why do we spend 99% of the time teaching them how to dribble and 1% of the time making sure that they know how to look somebody in the eyes, say yes ma'am or yes sir, or sit in the front of class or be kind to somebody that's different than them or that doesn't look like them. And Max went through hell because of what some decisions he made, but I'm so proud of him and what he's doing to come back and share a story with others. And I love him, and I'm thankful that he'd take the time to come up here. And I know it's not easy to talk about it, but he's taken a moment in his life and the negative effects of the Sportlight, and now is using it in a way to impact thousands and thousands of people. So I'm with you all the way, brother. I know you're continuing to fight it, and I'm proud of you, and I appreciate you coming up and sharing it with all of us, okay? All right, Max Hall.
Geez, the pressure's on, I guess. Here we go. First of all, I'm glad it turned into a cheat meal for everybody, eating all that cheesecake, so enjoy it. But thank you, Dustin, for that introduction. I'm super excited to be here. The first thing I have to do, though, I came on a weekend, and we decided to do this, a month ago, and then as it got closer, I go, oh no, Friday's my wife's birthday, Sunday's Mother's Day. So I went to Kenzie and I said, are you sure you want to go? I can go on my own. She goes, no, I'm in. Let's go. So I want to thank you, babe, for being here and sacrificing. So, that talk, that was 5-6 years ago when I first shared my story to QB Elite. And when Dustin asked me to do that, especially right before I got up, my heart started beating out of my chest. I was so nervous to tell my story. I think at that point I still didn't have really the self-confidence. I was dealing with anxiety stuff, and that was the first time really in public that I did that. And so I'm just so thankful I had the impact on those kids. But my story is unique, and I have to own it. And I went through a lot, and there are also a lot of lessons that I learned, just life lessons that have made me into who I am today. And so, again, thank you, Dustin. I'm excited to be here. So real quick, what I'm doing now, I'm down in AZ. Dustin said I'm coaching at American Leadership Academy. They brought this guy in named Ty Detmer to be the head coach. So we're coaching together and just having a blast down there in Arizona. So I also started a podcast called Agents of Recovery. If you have a chance, go check it out. We talk about a bunch of different topics with addiction and depression, anxiety, mental health, leadership, finding your why. I could go on and on. It's a great podcast if you guys have a chance. I'm about to open my own substance abuse counseling rehab facility as well down there in Arizona. We're really trying to get back into save lives and do everything we can, going through myself, almost losing my life myself. I want to be able to be a light in that area, so we're doing that. And I'm getting to speak more at stuff like this. It's crazy. I was at Delta High School a little bit ago. First time I'd ever been to Delta, right? And I've been able to speak for some companies and get to be here tonight. It's just so cool to see the positive that's coming out of the negative part of my life and getting to share that. And so I'm going to do my best to go through that tonight and not be too emotional about it. I can't get through it, but I'll do my best. So it's really cool that you guys are all here. And why are you here? You're here because you support, you endorse, you believe in a cause that is going to help the youth in our society today. I'm not going to thank Dustin because he told me not to. So I'm going to thank all you guys for everything that you're doing to help this great idea that Dustin had. And this is a movement. This is a call to action. This isn't just something that we talk about. We are actually going into high schools and talking to groups and calling them into action about what we can do to have high character and to make good choices and to serve the people around us. Because at the end of the day, is there anything more important than that? And the answer is no. How we treat other people, how we live our lives is the most important thing. Like Dustin just said, who cares if I can't throw a spiral anyway, so why care about that? Let's figure out who I am and what kind of character I have. Our youth are facing so many challenges today. You think about everything that they're having to deal with. You think about drugs, alcohol, pornography, social media. I can't tell you the number of kids that come up to me, oh, coach, did you see that guy got a scholarship offer and I'm better than him and all that. And they compare themselves to everybody else. And I just say, man, get off Twitter. Get off of it. It's not doing anything for it. Concentrate on you. Concentrate on what you're doing. Don't worry about that other stuff, because the more you worry about it, the more depressed you get, the more your self-confidence goes down. And so that's a struggle for all these kids, which leads to the depression and the anxiety and the mental health issues that a lot of these kids are facing today. With that, I'll kind of go ahead with my story here and share how that Sportlight was a positive thing for me and a negative thing, and what I did to overcome that. So, I mean, I grew up in a great family in the LDS church, was a good kid, was taught great principles, and did everything I could to be the best that I can. My senior year, towards the end of my senior year, is the first time that I was ever introduced to drugs. And I remember one of my best friends, I'm down in his basement, we're sitting there hanging out, and I noticed some of my buddies going in and out of a room kind of in the back. So I said, what the heck are they doing back there? I'm going to go check this out. So I walked into the room, and they got all weird, shut the door, shut the door. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, come here. Well, they were taking these oxys, and they were crushing them up, and they were snorting them off of the dresser. And I said, yo, you guys are nuts. You guys are crazy. What the heck are you doing? No, man, just try it. It's cool. It's cool. Make you feel great. We're just going to cruise and have a good night. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Come on. Finally, I fell. Finally, I said, all right, give that here. I'll try it. And I did it. And there's 3 types of people in this world that come to opiates. Number 1, it makes you sick. Number 2, it makes you fall asleep. Number 3, guys like me, that was the best feeling in the world. I felt like I could take a deep breath, and all the stress and everything that I was going through as a high school kid just went away. I didn't get addicted to it at the time, but it's important to understand the first time that I was introduced to it was in high school and what that did to me later. That's really important to understand. So after high school, I went to ASU, went on a mission, came back, decided to transfer to BYU. Had nothing to do with football. Had to do with everything of getting out of a bad environment at ASU. They were the number 3 party school in the nation at the time. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, like, if you go back there, what path is that going to lead you in your life? So I said, you know what, I'm going to go to BYU. One of the best decisions of my life, to go to BYU and be surrounded by the people that I was around. I am in a great Sportlight. And I thought I did a pretty good job of not only playing quarterback, but giving back and being in the community, representing not only a university, but representing a faith. Like, that was a big responsibility. Lucky for me, I had, in my opinion, the best quarterback coach that you can have, and that's Brandon Doman. Brandon Doman is a part of this and supports E4A, and I was lucky to have him. He gave me all the self-confidence in the world. He was always telling me that, we were talking about it earlier, he was just saying, Max, you can be as great as you want to be. You can be as good as you want to be, and you got it. He pumped me up on the field, and it was just amazing the relationship that I had with Coach Doman. He also taught me how to be competitive and to be tough. And I felt like as a football player, I was pretty tough. I'm gonna kind of puff up my chest here a little bit, all right? I was a tough football player, even as a quarterback. I would hang in there, I would take hits, I would deliver the ball, and then I'd talk trash to the defensive lineman that hit me. That's just how I played. I loved the game of football. I had a passion for it. There's not a better sport in the world, in my opinion, and I embraced that. I remember this one time, it was the bowl game my senior year. I took a shot. I tried to step up in the pocket and do that, hold on to the ball, throw it, and I took a shot. Toward my MCL, bad bruised ribs, and so I'm on the ground, and I got blood coming out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, and I get up, and I look over to the sideline, and Coach Doman looks at me, and he's like, are you okay? For whatever reason, that ticked me off. It ticked me off that he asked me that question, and the G-rated version of it is, I said, shut up and give me the next play. All right? Come on, man. And he's like, okay, whatever. Next play, I threw a touchdown pass. And that's kind of how things went for me, man. I had success. I was doing well. I was living right. Things happened to me in my career that I realized I was so blessed to be there. And the experience that I had at BYU will be some of the best years of my life, and I will always remember that. I got an opportunity to go play in the NFL. Went back home to the Arizona Cardinals and got to start games as a rookie. I eventually suffered 2 really bad concussions, knocked out cold on the field. And I just wasn't right. And I'm sure some of everybody, a lot of people in here played football. You know what a concussion feels like, and the depression and the fogginess and everything that goes along with that. So I kind of got really depressed at the time. For the first time in my life, I felt depressed. It was weird. I didn't really know how to handle it. I'm forgetting plays. I remember they kept playing me, and I'm forgetting plays at the line of scrimmage. And I just felt like I was going downhill. I think it was about week 7. I was in the game, took a sack fumble, and I reached out for the ball to get it. Someone dove right at my shoulder, and it dislocated my shoulder. So I'm sitting there with my shoulder hanging out of my socket, looking at the sideline like, hey, this thing's out. Come on. So send the trainer out to me. He yanked my arm down into place, put my shoulder back, and they took me back to the locker room. And when I got to the locker room, I sat down, I started bawling. I started crying my eyes out. Because in my mind, football was over. I thought I was done. And I know Dustin kind of touched on this a little bit, and I'm going to tweak it a little bit, okay, Dustin? People say, hey, football's got to be something you do, it can't be who you are. But the reality of it is, when you're so passionate about something and you work hard at something, it becomes part of who you are. And football was a big part of who I was. The problem is, I let it be the only thing that identified me. Being a quarterback, being a football player, being in the spotlight, playing on Fox, big lights in the NFL. Man, that's who I was. I embraced that. So now I'm thinking that it's over, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am. I'm in pain, concussion, emotional down. So I go to a doctor, he gives me a 30-day supply of Percocet. And I took the whole thing in about 3 days because it numbed it out. It took it away. I wasn't worried about anything anymore. The physical pain, the emotional pain, everything that I was going through was gone. Well, after 3 days, I'm like, well, dang it, I got to find more of this stuff. So guess who I called? My buddy from high school. I said, hey, man, you still doing those pills? He goes, yeah, I got you, bro. Come on, let's go. Well, that buddy has been in and out of prison, and it has totally ruined his life. But I got more pills, and off I went in my addiction. It got worse and worse. It became a daily habit. It got to the point to where I couldn't go 4 hours is when the withdrawal would start setting in and I would have to use again. So for 5 years, I lived in the dark. For 5 years, the number one thing in my life was finding drugs and using drugs. And then the next day I would do it again. That is a really crappy way to live your life. And that's what I did. I still was able to go back to the Cardinals the next year, but I was so hopped up on stuff. Now I was taking about 350 milligrams of oxy a day, which eventually turned into heroin. And now I'm down and I'm trying to get up to play football. So then I got to have stimulants just to keep me awake. So then cocaine, everything came into it. Amphetamine, anything that I could get my hands on. That's what I was going to do. I felt like I had to have it to function. And I couldn't see my life without it. That's how dark it got. It was hell. And addiction takes the soul of the addict. And it breaks the heart. I can never get through that part. Breaks the hearts of those who love him. And I broke a lot of hearts. And I caused a lot of damage. And for that, it still puts a knot in my stomach. It's really hard for me to talk about that. But it took my soul. It almost ruined me. After 5 years, I went up to play in Canada for a little bit. I came back down, and one Saturday morning, I did about 300 milligrams of oxy and almost a whole 8-ball of cocaine. I found myself wandering around at Walmart and wandering around at Best Buy, and I can make fun of myself now, but I'm like putting on headphones in the store. I'm gone. I have no idea what's going on. I'm acting like an idiot in this store. They call the cops. Cops come out, and they arrest me. And I vividly remember, not much about that day, but I do remember them putting handcuffs on me and shoving in the back of the police car, and I remember that door getting slammed shut. Boom. And here I am sitting in the back of a police car with my hands cuffed, thinking that's it. I'm done. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my friends. No one's going to want anything to do with me anymore. I'm a drug addict. I just got arrested. Cocaine and paraphernalia on me. You kidding me? How did I go from being the quarterback at BYU, starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, to a drug addict? Arrested in the back of a police car. I'm telling you what, addiction doesn't care who you are, doesn't care how much money you make, doesn't care how good you are at football. It'll come after you if you let it. And it destroyed me. I remember that was on a Saturday. Monday was a holiday. Tuesday, it hit the press. Twitter, I was on every front page of the newspaper, news station. People are making fun of me. They're making memes. They're going, I was embarrassed. I wanted to just go away. So I remember Tuesday morning when it came out. And I found out about it. I can't remember exactly what parking lot I was in. But I remember sitting down on a curb in this parking lot. And for the first time in my life, I didn't think it was worth going on anymore. I thought, I'm just going to end it right here. I'm going to figure it out. But for the first time, I thought about killing myself. It was the lowest point in my life, sitting on that curb. I felt alone. I felt scared. Felt like I had lost everything. That's what it did to me. No confidence. I didn't know what to do. So I remember it came out. I don't remember much about the day, but I got picked up. I think my mom came and picked me up, took me over to their house, and I sat down with some family members, some close friends, and they're like, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I dug my grave. I'm going to lay in it. That's kind of how I felt. I turned my phone off because I was getting texts and stuff like that, so I turned my phone off. Something in me said, turn your phone back on. When I turned my phone back on, the first call that I got was from Brandon Doman. I just told you the relationship I had for you coaches and administrators and leaders. You have no idea the effect, well, maybe you do, the effect that you can have on young kids. Brandon Doman called me up. He was my guy. He was my coach. He taught me everything about how to be a quarterback and how to be a good person. Called me up and he said, Max, we got you. Get on a plane, get up here to Utah. We're going to take care of you. I said, okay. I guess that's what we're doing. So I flew up. They got me to a rehab center. I spent 90 days in the rehab center. The first 2 weeks I was in withdrawal, kicking, hot and cold sweats. I can't stop throwing up. I'm shaking. It's like, imagine the worst flu you've ever had times it by 10. That's what I'm going through right now. And I wouldn't answer the phone because I thought Kenzie was going to leave me. I thought she was out. So I wouldn't take any messages. I wouldn't talk to her. I didn't want to do it. I couldn't face it. So my counselor says, Max, get on the phone and talk to your wife. And when I got on the phone and talked to her, she said, babe, I love you. And if you're willing to fight, I'm willing to fight with you. And she stuck with me. And that gave me a little bit of hope. And so I said, okay, or maybe I can get through this. Maybe I can overcome it. Friends, coaches started coming to visit me in there. I started to kind of come out. At about 30 days of your addiction, your mind starts to clear. Your receptors and everything in your brain start to reconnect. You start to be normal. It's also the time when the cravings happen. I want everybody to imagine something right here because pretty much everybody in this room is addicted to your phone. Absolutely. So I want you to imagine taking your phone, put it in your pocket, leave the ringer on, leave the vibrate on, make sure every notification is on, and that thing's just dinging in your pocket. All you want to do is grab your phone, right? And you can make any excuse you want why to take that phone out of your pocket, but if you do, you relapse. That's what it's like being a drug addict. That's what it's like having a craving. That was hard. So when I got out of that rehab, 2 weeks later, I was the most depressed I'd ever been in my life. And all of a sudden, I'm experiencing this anxiety. Man, I had played in front of thousands of people, done tons of interviews, spoken at firesides, and I can't even answer a phone call. I was scared to death at a family, like just my family dinner Sunday night. I'm like, please don't call on me to say the prayer, Dad, because my heart would start and I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'd never experienced that before. So let me tell you guys, this anxiety thing, it's real. Depression, it's real. When I did answer my phone, they'd be like, any friends or whatever, Max, how you doing? I'd be like, well, I'm sitting around. I'm not drinking or using drugs. Other than that, I'm absolutely miserable. Thanks for asking. About a year afterwards, Kenzie's like, nah, we're not doing this. This isn't fighting. You got to change. You have to make a decision on what you're going to do next. And so I had to make a choice. And I decided I was willing to do anything and everything that I had to do to get sober and to change my life around. This anxiety thing that I'm talking about, I'm going to give you a good idea. This is actually from Kenzie, and this is awesome. This explains anxiety. If you've never suffered or you've never had anything, let me explain it to you. And I want you to think about these high school kids as I do, because this is some of the things that they're going through. Having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's the fear of failure, but no urge to be productive. It's wanting friends, but hating socializing. It's wanting to be alone, but not wanting to be lonely. It feels like everything at once, and it feels like you're numb. Everything is happening, but you're numb to it. You can't function. And that's how I was, and that's how a lot of these high school kids are. That's one great thing that I have about a coach. X's and O's are great. And me and Dustin could sit up and draw plays at 2 a.m. all night long. But the best part about my job is mentoring these high school kids, is coaching them and teaching them to have high character, to make good choices, and to serve the people around them, to help other kids. That's what it's all about. That's what E4A is all about. So I love what we're doing here. And like I said, this is a movement. This is much needed. Hopefully you guys realize how many kids are struggling with this. Having been at the point where I thought about suicide, I can't remember the stat, Dustin, but there's a lot of kids out there committing suicide. Why? What are they going through? What's going on at home? What's going on with their friends? Do they have somebody to talk to? Do they have a coach or a mentor or somebody that can help them? That's what we're trying to do, right? That's what it's all about. We're going to teach these young men and young women how to grow up and how to be successful in whatever endeavor they go into in life. We got to get them there. And it's people like you in this room who believe in this that can make a difference. It's a lot of it is mindset. I had to change my mindset from being a victim of addiction, okay, into being a leader and to stand up and to own my story. And maybe I can use that to affect the lives of others. So these kids, when they come to me and have these problems, I can call their bullcrap all the time. I'll be like, nah, give me that, let's talk about this vape pen that you got. Let's talk about this that you're doing. Let's talk about how you're addicted to your phone. You can't stop watching porn. I deal with it on a daily basis. And I do my best to help them. Having been through it myself, I wish I'd have had somebody in high school teaching me this stuff. Maybe I would have never used that drug. Maybe I would have treated people better. Who knows? But I didn't have that. We're trying to give kids that. We're trying to train the coaches and everybody how to handle that. The kids that are doing great, how can you help others? But here's the thing. Even the kids that seem like they're doing great, they have issues too. They're struggling. I never thought I would ever be a drug addict. I never thought something like that would happen to me. Raised in a great family, went to BYU, playing in the NFL. Yeah, it can happen to any of us. Any of us. And I hope you guys all understand that can happen to any of you in this room. You go get a surgery, they give you Percocet, off you go, if you're not careful. The number one reason why kids are getting addicted to opiates is getting their wisdom teeth out. So if you got a kid getting their wisdom teeth out, be careful about what you're giving them, okay? Monitor that. Fentanyl. Everybody in here's heard of fentanyl, right? It's coming through the border like crazy, and it's making its way to Utah. Just the other day, right over there, I think it was kind of in the Nephi area, they made a huge bust of thousands of pills of fentanyl. Fentanyl is 80 to 100 times more potent than heroin. A little pinch of salt of fentanyl will kill you. And you got guys in whatever jungle or however they're making this, and they can press the pills, and they can make them look exactly like a Tylenol or a Percocet. Or they make them look just like an Oxycontin, but really it's fentanyl. Every week in Arizona, we hear of another high school kid ODing and dying from taking one pill. And sometimes it was the first pill they ever took because someone convinced them to take it. Just like I fell to it. They're dying left and right because of this stuff. It is so important that we teach our kids and teach our athletes about the dangers of this stuff and to stay away from it. So I mentioned a little bit about having to change my mind, and I'm getting close to the end here. Just hang on. I know I've been a little bit lengthy, but this stuff is important. This is what I teach my kids, my players mainly. And it's the difference between being a victim and being a leader. A victim blames others for everything that's going on in their lives, all the negative. They're going to blame everybody else around them. A leader is going to accept responsibility for their actions and look to improve. A victim is selfish and self-centered, only worried about them and whatever, their playing time, their catches, number of shots they get up, right? A leader is service-oriented and looks to lift other people up around them, who's not jealous, but excited when they see somebody else have success. And they thrive off that. A true leader will never be jealous of somebody else's success. A victim will hope things will happen to them. They'll sit around and talk about how they should be D1 and they should be getting a scholarship, but I'm like, what are you doing? You're not doing anything extra. You're not working hard. You're just hoping something good would happen to you. A leader's going to take that action. They're going to go the extra mile. They're going to run that last wind sprint. They're going to look for somebody that they can serve. Last, the victim always sees a problem, and a leader always sees an opportunity to grow and to get better. Those principles have gone a long way with the kids that I'm around. When I can teach them to train or to change their mindset into a leadership mentality, you see growth. You see a change. So, I guess to kind of wrap things up, I made a decision to move forward. I made a decision to accept responsibility and be accountable and to own my story and everything that I've done. Everybody, our youth needs this. And it's amazing to see, as Dustin was up here talking about all the schools and all the kids and all the hours that are being put in to this organization. This is a movement, like I said. This is action. This is teaching. This is standing up for what's right and not accepting that it's okay to do some of the things in this world that people are starting to say is okay. We need to do things the right way. We are making a difference and we are changing lives. And I am so grateful that I can be a small part of this. I'm so grateful for the lessons that are taught from this organization. And I love that even Dustin's a great quarterback coach. That's not the most important thing. I love that. That is why I am part of QB Elite and I'm part of E4A because of that. Having been through it myself, nothing else in life matters. We are making a difference. We are saving lives. And I appreciate all of you for what you are doing and supporting this cause. So let's keep our eyes up and let's continue to do the work. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you everybody for joining the Sportlight podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who would be blessed by listening to it, to give hope to someone who's currently in that very difficult battle of addiction, or listen to it with your kids and team to prevent being caught up in this very difficult trap. Keep your eyes up and do the work.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.